Ooh, man, it's been a bit. It really has. So, do you like turning your mind off when you play a game and just not having to think about it and just killing monsters endlessly? And that's pretty much the extent of it. You can probably click away from this video. It's not for you. But on the other hand, are you a hardcore player? Do you like following build guides and do you like challenging yourself to a basically punishing state? Yeah, this video ain't for you there. But if you want a happy medium, you want some theory crafting, you want to have your mind stimulated, but you want a good gameplay loop, you want some depth, some complexity, but not so overwhelming where you feel like you need to go to graduate school for. Stay tuned then. Ladies and gents, Casual Gaming Dad here. It's been a bit since I made a video, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't normally feel like making videos very much lately, given my life, personally, professionally, between my two jobs, and the little bit of time I have to play. I don't usually like to stream anymore. I'll sometimes watch a stream, but not normally, and that's okay. But regardless, what I have to say to you today is I have played Last Epoch for about 125 hours, so about 20 of those hours were before the 1.0 release, and a little over 100 was after. And I did want to share a little bit of what my experiences were. So let's get started. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be making some comparisons to, I believe, the most casual-friendly ARPG, which is Diablo 4, in my opinion, currently the most modern, casual-friendly one, and then PoE, which is the more hardcore. It's designed more for hardcore players and whatnot. So let's jump into the game really quick. I'm gonna go to I'll go to just play Last Epoch. I've spent quite a bit of my time on this game playing in the fully online, believe it or not. I don't know why. I just found it really nice to not have to worry about disconnecting. I know there was some server issues when the game first came out and whatnot, but nonetheless, let's get into it. First, I'm going to start just while the game's loading. I'm going to start with a few different categories, right? So the first category I'm going to start with is just like the graphics, the way it looks. I would say in order of graphical fidelity and the way it looks, and remember this is just an opinion, one casual gaming dad. I'd say Diablo 4 looks the best. Last Epoch is second, and Path of Exile is third. And here, let's just go showing online. I'll just show you a couple of the characters I had. I started online with Psycho characters. You'll see here that I started the Rune Master, actually. Pretty cool class. I'd say a little undertuned compared to the rest. I went with a Necromancer second and a Void Knight third. I was really looking for this one particular item for the Necromancer. Didn't find it. And then I went to offline, and you'll notice something. I've got quite a few acolytes, right? I ended up really liking that class a lot. But this game to me is somewhere between I'm just going to say a 7 in terms of looks, right? It's not the best looking game. It's certainly not a terrible looking game by any means. It's just that, compared to other modern games, it's not the best looking, okay? Those of you who are watching this, you might know what this build is, but so pretty good looking. But the 1.0 release was definitely a step up of an improvement over the game. But if you're looking for the best looking, if looks matter a lot to you, I mean, I certainly don't think it'll bother you though. I mean, compared to other RPGs we have, it's a pretty decent looking game. So there's looks. What about gameplay? I think the gameplay loops are very fun and enjoyable, depending on your build. But nonetheless, I've tried every character class. I probably spent the least amount of time as a rogue. And with the Acolyte, I played multiple builds. And all of them were fun to play. It was fun to just actually go and play the game. I feel like they've done a pretty good job with making you feel engaged and involved with said gameplay. So that creates this loop, right, where there's your input, you get feedback from the game, and you give input back, and then there's this continuous loop of feedback coming from you from the game. And then there's other forms as well besides that, but that's just specifically the gameplay. Of course, when you find items, when you kill a hard boss, or you progress in the game, it's pretty solid. I'd say, I don't necessarily know if I'd say it's the best. I think Diablo 3, for a lot of people, has really, really good, fluid, solid combat, which I agree. I did like Diablo 4's a little bit more. I like that it just toned down the pace a little. There was something to be said about the enjoyment of this really fast-paced combat in Diablo 3, but it was a little maniacal, and that might be your thing. For me, not so much. It would just get boring at a certain point. It just got old quickly. So I think slowing it down just a tad was powerful, and I did like that. So there's that. So we talk about looks, talk about gameplay. I want to talk briefly about. Well, I'm going to save that for last. That's kind of my favorite part. So one of the things that I think is really important when you're playing an ARPG is to make you feel like the build is really your own. So, but okay, you know what? Let's talk about loot really quick. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me do that. So, what's interesting about the loot is this is their form of charms, like you have in Diablo 2, is they have idols, and you have these spots, and I didn't even fill these up for some stupid reason. And then you have different items. What's really cool about the game is there's a number of different items. Eventually, like magicals and rares kind of become insignificant. What really you look for are these purple exalted items, and they have different tiers, which you can hold down here, and you can see the different ranges, see where you landed on. And what you really want to do is you're going to be using a combination of those with this is a unique, right? This is a pretty good one. They have special powers. They have legendary potential, which allows you to what a lot of people call slamming. So this is a legendary because this was unique that I slammed a power into. Well, actually, in this case, I didn't slam a power into it. It had the ability to gain stats, which gained random stats. But this one, for example, had one legendary potential, and I slammed and I got intelligence, which wasn't bad, This one doesn't. This one does. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I'm not going to go into the details of explaining all that. I don't want this to be a really long video, but the point is there's a lot of really interesting loot choices. I'll say there's experimental, which you get from a certain part of the game. I think one of the unfortunate things I feel like, and I'm just not sure how to solve this exactly, is that at a certain point, magicals and rares don't really mean anything anymore, and the set items for the most part are pretty awful. They're not very good, but at the same time, it doesn't bother me that much. I think once you level up through the campaign, it doesn't really matter anymore. You're just going to look for the better stuff. And I think that exalted, uniques, and then creating legendaries is really enough to make you feel really engaged with the game. So I do like that aspect of it. I think the itemization is pretty solid. I think what makes the itemization a lot better is the crafting, so I'm going to lean into that a bit more. Diablo 4 doesn't really have any crafting at this point, but it's about to get that in Season 4. I've only watched videos on it. It seems definitely improved. It looks like there's some similarities that they've taken, or I guess inspired them from Last Epoch. There's a joke calling it Last Epoch, so maybe that's going to be better. I hope so, because I think that adds to the value of the loot drops you get and things you can do with them. Whereas in this game, you can almost realistically create anything you want because you have all the stats here and you have different ways to modify them and change them, and it makes it really interesting. So let's talk about that. So again, we have here this thing rolled with these stats, right? And I can increase them. The main reason I keep it is because of the implicits it has in the item, which are, I think, really, really interesting. There's a lot of different implicits, a lot of different subcategories of items, in this case, one-handed axes. And a lot of times you'll find a really good item with the stats you want, but you know, it's not a useful implicit, and sometimes vice versa. Like this one, the main reason I'm using is for the implicit. So, but then you have different glyphs you can use to make some adjustments. This one can modify the outcome. This one's going to increase the odds that you don't use any forging potential, which there's this number here. And you can use that to modify an update, and it's going to be random. So sometimes you'll get something really awesome, sometimes you won't. There's prefixes and suffixes, and the way you get them is through these different crafting materials here. I'll just show you really quick. This is what's currently applied. These are things, it will show you automatically things you can apply and not. In this case, if it came with 4 affixes, you know, so I'll just show you really quick. What I can do is, none of these are really useful to me, so I can just do a rune of removal, and it'll remove a random thing on here. So I'll just do that and see what happens. Okay, so now it's a rare, and it took off melee attack speed, which is fine because I don't really care for that. So now let's go up and let's see what I can get. In this case, with this character, since I'm doing minion damage, let's see, mini necrotic, damage over time. None of these things are going to be helpful. I need, yeah, unfortunately, like none of these things are really helpful to me. See things that can't be applied. It shows like minion melee, minion bow for some reason. So you just pick something. I'm just gonna, gosh, yeah, really none of these things help me. It's kind of hilarious, but it's okay. I'll just do mana and mana regen, I guess, even though it isn't that helpful. There's literally none of these stats are helpful to me. So I'll just do that and I'll add it. And so now I have a tier 1 of that. And it only used 1 forging potential. I got lucky. Let's increase it some more. This isn't that great of an item, so I don't mind. You can go all the way up to tier 5 normally. If you want to get higher than that, you have to find it on an exalted item. So anyways, I'm just showing you just the bare bones of what this looks like. It's incredibly in-depth, and like even the rings have tons of different implicits. You can get them. Like look at this one. It's got minion damage, minion health, minion critical strike multiplier. This one only has cooldown reduction and attributes, but there's just so many things you can find. So it's really the min-max's dream. It's really going to take you just really like an endless chase, sort of. And so it does a really good job with that. There's a lot of very simple things about the game, too, that I really like that I'll just mention since we're talking about inventory and crafting. I guess really quick, I'll just show you. If we go back to town, your inventory space is what you see here. However, there's a very handy sort item. Gifting, that's separate. That's for if you play with a friend and you found resonance, which is another thing I won't go into detail explaining, but you essentially have endless inventory space because it just requires in-game gold. So if I just go to here and I just add another inventory space for here, see it's 27,500. I have 1,000,000 gold. I mean, it's really just it's so incredibly easy, and it's really wonderful, and there's so many ways that you can just go here. See, watch, I'll just click on here. I can change the name, change the color, do an icon. I mean, it's really remarkable. And then you can look at it this way at a glance. It's really, these developers, this small team, has done a really great job of taking feedback from the community. There's a transfer materials button, by the way, so every time you find materials, which you find all the time, just sends them right back here to your crafting. By the way, you know, Diablo 4 has nothing like this. They're starting to improve some of those things, I guess, from what I understand, for the next season. But for the most part, not really. You know, PoE, you can get these, you know, these places for your resources, but you have to pay for them. This is built into the game. Only it's $35, right? I think it's very fair, very reasonable. It's just a one-time purchase. There's so much good here to talk about in this game. So I love collecting uniques. I have exalted. There's idols, miscellaneous keys for dungeons, sets. I mean, again, I'm not going to go into everything because there's just too much to cover. I just want to highlight some of the main things I found that were just really enjoyable, especially for a casual gamer. But so I think, again, I don't want to make this video too long. What I do want to tell you is the number one reason why the title of this video says This is probably my favorite ARPG, and I'll tell you why exactly. And I've played, it's coming from a Diablo-centric player. This is someone who played primarily Diablo. That's how I got into ARPGs. That's how I discovered I wanted to enjoy them very much. And here it is. It's the skill system, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, PoE, way too overly complex. You know, everyone jokes you need a doctoral degree to make a build. That's exactly what it feels like. Diablo 4, overly simplistic, right? Is it a little bit better than Diablo 3? I mean, in some sense, yes, but in another sense, not really. It's not a whole lot better. Yeah, we got the Paragon board, and I guess there's definitely more depth. I'll say that. It's definitely more depth. I did like it at first, but then I played this game, and now if I try Diablo 4 again, which I may try it for Season 4, I'm not sure yet, I'm going to see the difference. It's massive, and I'll tell you why. Because all of your skills, which you unlock here, different masteries. Even when you unlock a mastery, it gets your main skill right here. But you can still put points in each of the trees. And what I love about it is there's two elements to each tree. There's the passive nodes, so you put points, and then you unlock abilities. And then you've got your masteries, right? And you can put points there. And again, there's different abilities you can unlock as you go. And I think what's really great about it is that the fact that it's, number one, it's very forgiving in that, yes, when you get locked into mastery, you're locked into a mastery, which it doesn't bother me too much, really, to be honest. But I feel like the game is pretty relatively well balanced enough to where you can just look and you can read, and each skill is a skill tree, which is really remarkable, right? And you can just look and read, and you can kind of decide what works for you and what makes sense for your build. And I had so much fun. This is it right here. This is the number one reason. What really hooked me into the game is I love theory crafting. I really do. I love theory crafting. I like figuring it out myself. I don't like depending on builds. I mean, sure, I'm not hating on anyone that does, by the way. I just want to be clear about that. That's fine. My son loves builds. Loves following build guides, and that's okay. I've done that too. But I really enjoyed the theory crafting. And this game, I feel like, gives it to me in spades, better than any other RPG, hands down. It's accessible. I tried it with PoE. I failed miserably. I really didn't feel like... I don't have the time for that, right? I don't have the time to dedicate what feels like I would take hundreds of hours to get to that point. So I really felt pigeonholed into following a build guide. And so I'm really glad that I don't have to do that for this game. If anything, And I can respec too, so I can go back. I can remove individual points, or I can despecialize the skill entirely, and you just have to level them up again. They're a max of 20. They only have higher levels because of items I have. See, +1. So you can make it work. You can try. You can experiment, and I really like that. And it works really, really well. And I had just had so much enjoyment and so much fun doing that. Honestly, that's the reason why I played so many characters in just that 100 hours, 120 hours or so. Is because of that. So if that's something you enjoy, if that resonates well with you, then let me tell you, you're probably gonna have a hard time putting this game down, because I know I did for a bit. I mean, I'm playing other games now, but I will for sure. I'm just waiting for an excuse to play this game again. I really am. You know, I just really kind of had to force myself. Okay, I want to play some other things now. There's so many great games out there and whatnot, but if I'm looking to scratch that itch, this game's it for sure. I had a lot of fun with it. I really do, and I encourage you to give it a try. For $35, it's pretty reasonable. You can probably even get on a sale eventually for less. But there's a cosmetic shop, but you never have to buy it. I've never bought into that. You'll never have to pay for an expansion. You'll never have to pay for anything else. Oh, actually, before I go, just one last thing. I guess we should mention, right? One of the big things a lot of people care about is there's a loot filter. There's a built-in loot filter, which every ARPG should have. They really should. This game drops a lot of loot, but the loot filter is relatively easy to use, so it's really non-issue. Like, really is. It's non-issue at all. So, anyways, these are just my thoughts. You know, let me know what you think in the comments. You know, have you enjoyed this game? What's your favorite class? For me, it's been the Acolyte, but I haven't really explored every mastery just yet. Really the Acolyte's the one I've spent the most time on. I'd say the Druid, the Mage is pretty good. And I think the Rogue is what I've spent the least amount of time on. Nonetheless, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back when I'm back. Thanks so much. Bye bye.